For those of you who are counting, I think this is cooking show number 12. We started out thinking we would do one of these, and here we are to number 12. And my guests today are Pat Doe and Jacob Archer from Wichita. And Pat Doe is an orthopedic surgeon, and he serves on the board of regents of Newman University with me, and that's how we met. And sometimes during breaks we would get together and talk about cooking.
I like talking about cooking, so it makes it easy.
Yeah, and he's a real foodie, and half the time when you were talking about, you're over my head, so I'm excited to see what you're going to cook today, and and I'll learn some stuff from you.
I doubt that, Father, since Father lived in Italy, but so I cook a lot with Jacob. I love
Oh, you cook together? Oh,
he's a great cook.
We share the passion and enjoy spending time together cooking, and
we do a lot of charity dinners together.
Yeah.
Oh, those are fun. We do those up here too. A couple of other priests and I do those together, and it raises a lot of money for those charities and stuff, but it's also fun to do.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
It's fun. I love feeding folks.
And you were recently named Outstanding Wichita Citizen of 2022 or something like that?
Yes, Wichita Chamber of Commerce honored me with Uncommon Citizen.
Uncommon Citizen.
So we give that to somebody that has contribution to the community and a little bit of charity and this and that. So.
Okay, so uncommon doesn't mean weird. It's a good thing.
I hope so. Yeah. It was a good event. It was fun. So there's a video on it if you want to see that.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Jacob just saw it for the first time. He helped me prepare some dishes for the video for that show.
Uh-huh. Oh.
It looked pretty good. It made the food look better than it really is. At least it looked good. Hopefully it tasted good too.
Can't wait to get started.
Yeah.
Pat is going to do Bolognese sauce, which I do a lot of Italian cooking, but I've never made Bolognese. So I'm looking forward to that. And Jacob is going to do steaks, and I'll let him explain what we're going to do with that. But I think first you were going to talk about this cut of meat and how to warm it up to room temperature or something like that. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yes, this is a 28-day dry-aged ribeye, and so we want to get it cooking at room temperature, so that way it's not too shocked when we put it in the pan. It gets a more even cook. So we're going to get it salted and then let it sit out while we prepare the mirepoix and the bolognese, and then get it seared up on the cast iron nice and hot. So first step's going to be to get it salted up and dried off.
Most folks know this or don't know it, but you want to go from really high to low so that it salts evenly and not get too concentrated in one area. And I normally like to use kosher salt. And then when you're cooking it as well, if there's fat on the meat, I like to cook the meat in its own fat too, because then it tastes better.
So make sure we get the sides, and then we can let this sit and get ready to cook.
Jacob, can you help me cook my aromatics? It's called a mirepoix, which is a French term, which is onions, carrots, and celery. But I think when you go to Italian cooking, your aromatics cook, they call it a sofrito, I think, but same concepts. It's aromatics that flavor your oil to make your sauce taste better.
And then down in Louisiana, they call it the Holy Trinity, but it's bell peppers.
Right, bell peppers, yeah.
Instead of the carrots, right? Onions, bell peppers, but the principle is the same. It's the developing flavor at multiple stages in the cooking process. So can you slice that up?
I can get going if you guys want to work on some of the other. Yeah, so we're cutting it into thin batons like this to start. So that way when we come in, we can come and make a smaller dice for which to sweat the vegetables down to make the sofrito. So you want to get it into relatively homogeneous size so it cooks evenly. And you want all of the different vegetables to look identical for relative presentation purposes. So it just takes a little bit of time and knife skills. we want to try and get equal parts of celery, carrots, and onion. So that way they're all balanced and one doesn't overpower the other.
See, everybody's different. I like more onion.
Well, we can make an exception for Pat today.
Yeah.
And we can go extra onion.
Yeah, can you give me more onion? I like onion.
Actually, I've often heard that the onion should be double the size of the other two.
That's what I heard. I didn't want to argue with Jake.
Let's do that then.
But I agree. It's usually a 2-1-1 ratio for a classic mirepoix.
I think we're all here to learn, so let's...
Yeah, I love onion. I'm gonna do the sofrito and aromatics first. Then I'm gonna put in the garlic later so it doesn't burn. The garlic burns a little bit. And I like to develop layers and layers of flavor. So I salt my food each stage of the game.
Yeah, I do too.
So I have olive oil in here, and I'm gonna add the aromatics now. And the sofrito looks like, and you can hear it that there's no noise. That means I need to turn the temp up a little bit. Nothing sizzling. That means you can tell. So in cooking, folks sometimes ask me what the recipe is, and I don't really know a recipe very often because it's a little bit by feel and your technique and experience. So here I heard no crackling, so I know you gotta turn the temperature up. Is this salt, Father?
Yeah, it is.
So as I'm developing my different flavors, there's certain things in Asian cooking called umami, and that's like the sixth sense of taste. I like to add a little bit of crushed red peppers, but there's secret stuff in there that folks don't realize is in a sauce that adds umami or flavor. And one of those umami things is anchovy paste. Fish sauce has it, maybe soy sauce and Worcestershire sauce has it, but it adds a lot of secret flavor to a dish that nobody knows about, but it adds a lot of great flavor. So I sneak in a little bit of anchovy paste. And the other thing that has flavor to it that most folks don't realize that adds umami is tomatoes. So I add in a little bit of tomato paste as well.
I've never used anchovy paste, but I use anchovies. I just smash them up with a fork.
Yep. So I actually have 2 cans of anchovies. I actually have found some anchovy paste around. I brought that up. So I have cans of it.
Okay.
And I put regular peppers, but a lot of times I'll use Calabrian chilies. Have you used those?
Yeah.
Once I get the sofrito going and it's seasoned and it's sort of wilted down and cooked in the oil here, then I'll add the garlic, but I don't add the garlic right away because I don't want it to burn. Sort of wilted, I'm gonna add the garlic now. So I've added onions, carrot, celery, 2 parts. I like 2 parts onion to 1 part carrots and 1 part celery. And once it's wilted down in olive oil, I place salt. And now I'm gonna turn the heat down because I can tell it's getting too hot and I don't want to burn my garlic. So now I love to cook the aromatics, and you want to brown the meat. And for a Bolognese, you can put any kind of meat you like. But I went to Costco and I bought some beef, and I bought some Italian sausage. And now I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit because I actually prefer to brown the meat a little bit more with higher heat. So now we'll add. So I turn the heat up, and then once I get this browned, let me add a little salt. And what I should have done too is add some of my Italian seasoning in that oil, because I think the hot oil brings out some of the flavors. And there's already Italian seasoning in the sausage, so I don't need to add too much. And you don't even really need a lot of this Italian seasoning.
Italian sausage has fennel in it, which
has what? Fennel?
Fennel. And that's what really makes it unique from all other sausages, but I've learned to really love that.
So what we're gonna do here is we peeled the potatoes, and so what we're trying to do is cut them into tall cylinders, like so we can get a nice flat side to get a really good sear. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip it and then put it in the oven with chicken stock and fat to brown up. So it should be super crispy on the top and then nice and like a baked potato, soft on the inside. So we have to get them cut up and then soaking, so they can pull some of the starch out of them and they stops them from oxidizing and turning brown. So we'll let those soak for a little bit until we're ready to get them seared off and put in the oven.
I put the meat in, it's brown. I could use a little bit more brown, but that's okay. This is just a little trick I have, but I used to use red wine. I think you can, but I use white wine, and I love cooking peasant dishes, so I don't like to be fancy about things. But if I have a dinner party and there's leftover white wine, I'll put in these Ziploc bags, and then I'll freeze them, because I know I can use it for cooking later. And again, you only cook with what you're willing to drink, and these were good glass bottles of white wine, but since I couldn't finish, I put in Ziploc bags and I freeze it. So I'm going to use it as part of the extra flavor for the Bolognese. And then I want the alcohol to cook off to a little bit. And once the alcohol cooks off but the flavor's all still there, then I'll add the tomato sauce. And if I was a really good Italian housewife, I would have remembered to bring the Parmesan rinds, unless you have some father, but
I think I do.
For the Parmesan cheese, you put Parmesan rinds in there. That just adds more umami. So flavor in this right now is you have tomatoes, which is a lot of great flavor. Then you have the anchovies that I snuck in there. And now you add Parmesan, which Parmesan cheese is another umami or flavor enhancer. But that's my secret weapons.
I think this is actually Romano, which I kind of prefer to.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Because it's a little sharper. It's sheep cheese instead of cow.
Even healthier.
Is that enough?
Oh, it's fine. Yep, that's plenty. I'm just trying to put that in so you don't see the butter I might want to put in here. So the other things you can do is add butter, bone marrow. So I've done all that. Butter, bone marrow, cream. You can do any one of that. So once I think the alcohol is about cooked off, oh, I forgot my other flavor enhancer. That's my secret weapon, is chicken stock. So I have chicken stock. And you're gonna use some of the chicken stock for your potatoes, right? When you cook.
Correct.
So chicken stock, if you cook some with your potatoes or your Bolognese or your sauce, it just adds flavor for me. And it just has to simmer a while. And there's a secret to seeing it simmer in a while when you start seeing it bubble. And I think that looks good. It looks a little bit watery, so I better evaporate some of this stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and add Jacob's tomato sauce. Jacob, you bought some fancy tomatoes.
We have a tendency to make homemade pizzas at home, and a lot of pasta.
You do?
With high quality ingredients leads to high quality results. So
I agree. All right, this is probably too much tomato sauce, but that's okay. Or you just dice up a bunch of cherry tomatoes or tomatoes and just cut that down too. It's all the same. Can you be Italian housewife for me and rinse it and put both and then we pour it in? You know that trick, right?
yeah, waste not, want not,
Yeah.
right?
My heart just won't let me throw that away without
Yeah.
rinsing it.
Yeah, there's just no reason to, and it's just gonna evaporate, so. Oh, you had more water in there. Now you gotta let more water evaporate. So the can's empty, we didn't waste a thing.
How long are you gonna simmer the sauce for?
Usually I do it for hours, but there's no movie magic here, right? So we'll just slowly.
So what we're gonna do here is take the potatoes out and we're gonna dry them off because we really don't wanna put cold potatoes with a bunch of water and hot oil. So we'll dry them off, ready to get seared. Because now we can see these are different thicknesses, what I'm gonna do is trim down these bigger ones into smaller sizes so we get an even cook and they cook a little bit faster. So now we've got more potatoes at a smaller size so they'll cook evenly and we can have a little bit more. So we're gonna add just enough oil to cover the bottom of the pan, and we're gonna heat it up until it starts shimmering, and then we're gonna come over and grab the potatoes. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the potatoes and we're gonna find the best presentation side is the side that's gonna go down first. So that's gonna have the hardest sear, so we want the largest side to have the most sear so we get the most flavor. So we're gonna go through and lightly season these to start, and then determine which is the best side. So like with this potato here, it kind of comes up, and so this has the largest surface area, so we're gonna focus on that side for the first round of cooking. So we can see here that the oil is starting to simmer, and so we're gonna come in and lay down the potatoes and turn the heat down a little bit. We want to cook them and get them nice and brown, but not overdo it.
Have you done this technique before, Father?
I have not.
It's actually, it has, it just looks appealing.
So we're gonna keep that on medium heat, make sure that they're all getting good contact with the pan, and we're gonna let them hang out there for 5-6 minutes.
So I like my sauce simmering like this, Father, just simmering. And I can tell there's a lot of water in there, so I'm gonna want that to evaporate some. But really, normally you wanna go hours on this to let everything really break down. But
So when you're letting it go for hours, do you leave it uncovered or do you?
no, I normally leave it both. I can tell there's a lot of fluid here, so I'll leave it uncovered and let it evaporate. But once I start getting the sense that it's about the right consistency, then I'll cover it and just crack the lid open a little bit.
Right.
But here I can tell there's plenty of fluid, so I want it to evaporate. Mm-hmm. And then the other key is once we cook our pasta, theoretically you want your pasta to finish cooking in the sauce.
Oh.
That's a key. That's really key.
So you just do it almost less than al dente and then stick it in
Then
there.
stick it in the sauce and cook it.
Okay.
Here with this one, I'll probably still do that, but yeah, you want to finish cooking then because it absorbs.
Yeah.
So you can see that it's starting to go golden brown on the bottom. We want to wait till it develops much more of a crust. So we'll just let them kind of hang out. And so what we're going to do next is when the potatoes are browned on the bottom, we're going to remove the potatoes to the plate and drain off the oil. We're then going to put some chicken stock and a little bit of butter in the pan, put the potatoes back in on the reverse side, so the side that hasn't been cooked, and then put them in the oven for about 30 minutes. So we can see here these potatoes starting to look pretty good. So we don't want to take them too dark, because when we flip it, we're going to expose this side to heat in the oven. So we don't want to take it too far right now to the point where it'll be burned. So what we're going to do is take these off and turn this way down to low and remove these. So we're gonna, utilize this leftover pan here, the container, and drain off into here. And then we're gonna come over and wipe off the side so we don't cause a grease fire, because that wouldn't be good, would it? And we'll get these potatoes back on. So now what we want to do is come in with that half a cup of chicken stock. And what you really want to make sure is you're getting part of the way up the side of the potatoes, so you're not, they're not swimming. And then we also want to come in with some pepper.
I like a lot of pepper in my potatoes.
A little bit more salt. And then if we have a little bit of butter as well.
I do. I was trying to debate whether to save your butter for the steak, pasta sauce, or this. Good thing Father has butter.
Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to keep it on the stovetop here until the chicken stock gets into a little bit of a simmer. So that way we're not putting cold liquid that isn't simmering into the oven, where it takes a lot of heat and energy and time to get it up to temperature. So we can improve the cooking time. So we don't need a ton of butter for this, but just a little bit. So we're gonna bring this back up to a hard simmer, and then we're gonna put it on in the oven. And it should be done in probably 20 to 30 minutes. These smaller potatoes are gonna take less time, but they're also gonna be more well cooked and crispy, whereas these thicker potatoes are gonna have more of like a baked potato, fluffy interiors. So you can kind of pick and choose what you'd like. So as you can see here, that now the butter is melting, the chicken stock's come up to a simmer. So we will move these into the oven and come back in 20 minutes. So now we're gonna dry off the steak. It's been sitting out for 30 or 40 minutes. You can see that there's a lot of moisture here on the surface, which is the salt absorbed into the meat. It pulls some of the moisture out. And that's really, really good, because moisture is the enemy of a good crust, and we all like a good crust on our steak. So let's go and take out all the moisture and pat it off. So when we put it on the cast iron skillet, we get a nice, even, thick crust. So here we're gonna add a little bit of high heat oil to the pan, but not a whole lot. We just want some to cover the bottom, and so it can help conduct the heat from the pan into the steak. So we want to have that come up. And since we salted the meat to start, we don't need to salt it again. And we can always finish the steak when it's done and cut up with a little bit of salt. And I also prefer to put pepper on near the end as it's resting, because it tends to burn and get like an acrid, bitter taste, as opposed to like the fresh cracked pepper taste we all love. So we're just gonna wait for this to start shimmering and have a little bit of smoke coming out of it to show that it's hot, as you can see here. We're then gonna lay the steak in. And so we want really, really good contact with the pan.
I can smell it already.
So here we can see that we have nice fat rendered. You know, it's all squishy and we have nice golden crust. So now we're just gonna work on the other side and then lower the heat down to medium low, put some butter in and baste it so we can get that brown butter flavor on the outside of the steak and help it cook a little bit more gently as we bring it up to temp.
Jacob, you and I have done this before, but we'll put in thyme, garlic, rosemary, and baste it in that for extra flavor.
One of the techniques we can do is we can lean the pan back, especially in a deep pan like this, and you can get a pseudo fry on there in the so if you have any pieces that are a little bit less brown that you'd like, you can use that to crisp them up. So I really like my steaks rare, like as rare as they can get is my preference. But this will probably end up between medium and medium rare is what we're gonna shoot for. So now we're gonna take it all the way down to low. This pan, with it being cast iron, is gonna hold on to a ton of heat. So the residual heat and the little flame on the bottom is gonna go a long way to taking this steak to done. So we're gonna throw in some butter, and we have a garlic clove here. So the technique is we're gonna move the steak all the way to the back, and we're gonna come and pick this oil and butter up and touch up any of the spots that you think maybe need a little bit more browning, and trying to just get that flavor all over the steak. So this is where you can add rosemary, thyme, tarragon, any other different spices or flavors that you want to put on the steak. This is a really good time to get that on there. You just got to be careful with some of the hard spices like rosemary and thyme, because the oils and compounds inside them have a tendency to splutter. So just be careful with that.
Father just brought in some rosemary and thyme, Jacob.
Oh, wonderful. So we're just gonna go by feel on this, and right now it feels rare. So we'll let it go here for a little bit and keep on basting and letting it carry over to where we want it to be at about 125 to 135 degrees. So we also have to be careful not to have the heat too hot. Butter will burn after it browns, so we want to keep a nice even sizzle, and yeah, not make sure to burn the butter, else we'll end up with bitter taste on our steak.
You want to put in your aromatics now?
Yeah, that'd be great. So Father was kind enough to go out to the garden and get us some rosemary and thyme to baste in. And as I said earlier, you can hear it spluttering and cracking. It's all the oils coming out of the meat. And we also have to make sure not to burn these either, because that puts off flavors and compounds. So we will just let this go.
So after I'm done, I think Jacob does the same thing, but that crust is working hard to get, and you have to rest the meat for 10-15 minutes. But I'll rest it on a cookie sheet so the air circulates in the bottom. It doesn't lose its crust. It's soaking in its own juice. And then I'll tent it with aluminum foil.
So you put it up on a rack a bit?
On a rack, like a cookie resting sheet. Because you want to really save that crust.
Yeah.
Jacob's been working so hard on that crust, hasn't he, Jacob?
So I think we're now getting to the point where we're starting to turn from from rare to getting close to that medium rare. So we're just gonna let it cook a little bit more, baste for a minute or two, and then we're gonna let it rest. But as it sits and rests, it'll carry over cook through that retained heat in the meat, and we'll get another couple 5 or 6 degrees and allow the meat to relax, allow the juices to redistribute, and to get a really nice clean cut of steak without all of that myoglobin and hemoglobin coming out of the meat. So we should be right on our way to having a tasty ribeye.
I'd say so. Looks really good.
So now we're also gonna check on these potatoes. So as we can see, they've browned nicely on top. That chicken stock has gone a long way into reducing. We can take a paring knife and kind of go into the middle, and there's no resistance on these. So we know that these are done. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this steak and we're gonna rest it. So we wanna rest it on a cookie rack so the crust that we work really hard to develop doesn't get destroyed by sitting on a flat surface. Air can circulate it and keep the crust nice and dry. So we'll let it sit there and rest for 5 or 10 minutes and we should be good to go. So the steak's been resting now for about 10 minutes. And so off camera, I took all of the drippings that came off of the beef and that butter and oil that I poured over on the pan while it was resting and let it sit in here. So it'll naturally separate the fat above from the hemoglobin and some of those red liquids that come out of the meat. So we can spoon off some of the fat when it's serving for some extra flavor. So we're gonna hone our knife so we can get a nice sharp edge. And we're gonna separate the ribeye in its 2 sections. So up around the top here, we have the rib cap or the spinalis, which is separate from the ribeye itself. And so you can see it comes across really easily, and it's separated by nothing but a little bit of fat. So now we can come in and we can cut this up. And I know if you ask Pat what his favorite cut of the meat is, it's definitely the spinalis here. So we can cut off the bottom where there's another little bit there, separated by a big piece of fat. And so now what we want to do is we want to find the direction that the meat fibers run in, and we want to try and cut across it. So that way we get the most tender bite we can. And by letting it rest, you'll see it's wall-to-wall pink. And there's no juices all running out. So as you can see here, we have a lovely medium rare to enjoy. So then you can take a little bit of that fat and oil there and finish it up on the top. So then we're gonna come and we're gonna finish with a little bit of this basil finishing salt that one of Pat's friends was kind enough to make for him. So just a little bit of salt there. And we have this beautiful plate here that we can put the meat onto. So there we have a little bit of something for everybody. So now with those potatoes, we take that little bit of beef fat and oil and we can finish the top with that. And then we can take some of Father's homemade thyme and bon appetit.
I just salted the water before I put the pasta in. So what we do is you want to finish, the pasta's probably al dente, so a little bit of chew in it. And I like to finish my cooking process in the actual sauce. So that just adds a little more flavor. And Father has this great pot that he said he bought in Rome 26 years ago. That way you just pour it straight into your sauce, and then you finish cooking it in the sauce. So yeah, so I really want to cook it in the sauce. I think we're about ready. And you got the taste as you go. So I love cooking and eating it in the right timing too, to make sure it tastes good. Make sure that the noodles are cooked. I think we're ready. Sauce-wise,
How is it?
that was good. There's all the meat on the bottom too, but
Shall we bless it? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Bless us, O Lord, in these thy gifts which we are about to receive from thy bounty. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
let me try this piece of steak here. Wow.
That potato is great too. Gosh, it's just perfect texture. I'm making some sweetened whipped cream for my dessert. And I'm just eyeing it. A little sugar. I'm just going to put a dash of vanilla in that whipped cream. So that's what it wanted about that consistency. Pretty stiff. And I think I poured a little too much vanilla and I can really smell it, but I don't mind. I love vanilla. So that's going to go on the top of our ice cream sundae. So this dessert is great for when you don't have time to bake anything or do anything fancy. It's just basically an adult ice cream sundae. And so it has vanilla ice cream, which I'm going to let warm up a bit. Ice cream always tastes a little better when it's just about ready to melt. Perfect consistency. Might as well finish this. And then a little Kahlua. Now this is kind of dangerous because these roll on you being round, but I'm trying to just chop them a little bit. More for looks than for any other reason, but it just kind of looks good this way. So then a little bit of espresso goes in. And the whipped cream that we made earlier. And then sprinkled espresso beans over the top. And we're ready. And when you serve this, you don't need to bother serving coffee because plenty of coffee already there. And you can use decaffeinated espresso too.
Yeah, this is great.
It's actually my favorite dessert. I probably have this once a week.
Oh, really?
You do too?
Oh yeah.
You guys know how to live right.